Okay, if you haven't already, what I want you to do is work through the 6 warm-up problems. They're from before break. Remember, if you haven't already, you want to convert everything to decimals and compare it that way. So I'm going to show the answers. If you already have it done, great. If you don't, please pause the video, work through those 6 questions, and then hit play so you can check your answers. So you should have gotten, for number 1, the 2 2/3 is greater. Remember, it eats the bigger number. Number 2, the percent is greater. Number 3, the square root is greater. 4 and 5 are both equal. Exactly. Remember, they can only be equal if they're totally exact, not close. They have to be the exact same thing. And number 6, the root is bigger. Okay, so that's just a little refresher from before break as we kind of gear up over the next 2 weeks to take the final exam and refresh everything. So what we're going to talk about today is a few things with functions. So what we're going to talk about first is function notation and evaluating functions. You guys have technically already done this, it just looks different. So to evaluate a function's value, it's the same thing as substitution. So if you look at the example on the left-hand side right here, if I gave you y equals 3x plus 5 and said, okay, well, what is it when x is 2? You would say, okay, well, if x is 2, I'm going to put 2 in for x. 3 times 2 is 6, and then 6 plus 5 is 11, so the answer is 11. It's the same thing, it just looks different. So function notation looks like this. So f of x is the same thing as y. It's just 2 different ways of writing it. So see how this says f of x equals 3x plus 5. This says y equals 3x plus 5. It's the same thing, just 2 different ways of writing it. So the way you'll see this, instead of x equals 2, it'll be written as f of 2 with a 2 in parentheses. What that means, when you see f of 2 means x equals 2. And then you're going to do the exact same process. You're essentially substituting 2 in for x and finding the y. So here, for number 1, sorry, we can get rid of that. There we go. For number 1, it says f of 2 if f of x equals x minus 4. So that means f of 2 equals, this is just notation, it's just like saying when what is y when x is 2? You're going to take this x right there and you're going to make it a 2. So you're looking at 2 minus 4. Well, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So your answer is negative 2. So it's the same thing, it just looks different. If you look at the next one, you have f of negative 4 if f of x equals 5x plus 10. So f of negative 4, and then you're going to take this x right here and you're going to substitute in negative 4 for that. So that is 5 times negative 4 plus 10. Remember your order of operations. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20 plus 10. Negative 20 plus 10 is negative 10. And that's your answer. Okay. For the next one, same thing. It's just a decimal, but it's the same thing. F of 3.62. So that means I want to make my x 3.62. So negative 2 times 3.62 minus 5. All I did was substitute that value in for x right there. So if you take negative 2 with your calculator and you multiply it by 3.62, you get negative 7.24 and then minus 5. So if you subtract 5 from that, your answer is negative 12.24. Okay. So what I suggest is I would pause the video and I would take a minute or 2 or 3 or whatever, and I would try the next 3 and see how you do. Once you have your answers, obviously hit play again and then you can check your work. For number 4, f of 9, that means x is going to be 9. So negative 8 times 9 plus 2.5. Negative 8 times 9 is negative 72 plus 2.5. So if you have negative 72 and you add 2.5 to it, you end up at negative 69.5. For number 5, f of 0, so x is going to be 0, so we're substituting in there, so negative 7 times 0 minus 14. Well, negative 7 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 14 is negative 14. So whatever's in these parentheses right here is telling you what your x value is going to be. Okay, so this last one, x is 20, so 13 times 20 minus 12. 13 times 20 is going to get you 260 minus 12. If you subtract 12 away, your answer is 248. Okay. So really, it's just substitution in a different form, and we call it function notation. So remember, when you see f of x, that's the same thing as y. Okay, this is just one way of writing it. This is another, but they're the same thing. Whatever's inside the parentheses right here, that number that I circled up here is what you're going to substitute in for x into the equation you're given. Okay. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is relations when it comes to functions and the words domain and range. Now, domain and range you might have heard before. If not, don't worry about it. But what you're going to be given is you're going to be given a set of ordered pairs, and we're just going to talk about different ways to represent what those ordered pairs look like. The biggest thing here, you guys, is these two words. So these are the ordered pairs that you were given, these four. This is what everything's going to be based on. Okay, your domain is all of the x values that you have, and your range is any of the y values. So remember, your coordinates always go x comma y. So anything in this first column right here, notice that became your domain, and see these brackets, that's notation for that. Anything in the second part, the y right here, becomes your range. Okay, now that's one way of talking about the data. The second way is just a table. Well, you guys have seen that. It's just putting x, y in a table and then taking that and bringing it to the graph. Okay, so if you look at these two, for number 7, you're given 4 sets of points. So we are going to base everything off of these 4 points. Okay, so your domain, we'll do that first, is any of the x values. So it's like a squiggly bracket. You can see, you just do the best job you can, just don't make it a parenthesis. All my x values are the numbers that are first. The 2, then the 3 in the next point, the 0 in the next point, and the negative 2 in the last point. So all of those x values make up my domain. My range is all the y values. Well, your y values are your second coordinate. So your range here is going to be 4, negative 5, negative 4, and 1. Okay, you can just put them in order. They don't need to be in numerical order or anything. You can just list them. Now we're going to put them in a table, and you guys, that's as easy as copying these points down into the XY table. So 2, 4 from our first point, 3, negative 5 from our second point. Sorry, my computer just jumped a little there. Negative 5, 0, negative 4, and negative 2, 1. So when we go to graph those, remember your x is always left to right, y is always up and down. So we have the point 2, 4. So I'm going to go right 2 and up 4. There's my first point. I have the point 3, negative 5. So right 3, and now I'm going to go down 5 because it's negative. 0, 4 means I don't go left or right, and it's negative 4, excuse me. So I'm just going to go down 4. And then negative 2, 1 means I go left 2 and up 1. So those are what the 4 points would look like graphically. So that's all you have to do there. Okay, if you want to take a second and try the next one on your own. Again, just like the front, try it on your own. Pause the video and then come back and see if you got it correct. That would probably be the best way to know if you do know what you're doing. So for this one, we're going to focus on these 5 points. You can have as many points as you want. Obviously, it doesn't matter. So my domain is all of the x values here. So in this case, that's going to be negative 3, 3, 0, negative 10, and 1. And then my y's, the second part of your coordinate, are going to make up my range. So negative 4, -8, 5, 10, and 7. Okay, I'll make those slightly smaller so that I have room. There we go. So that's your domain and your range. Your table of values, just like above, is just listing out those points. -3, -4, 3, -8, 0, 5, -10 and 10, and then 1 and 7. And then to graph those, -3, -4 goes left 3 and down 4. So you're here. 3, -8 goes right 3 and down 8. 0, 5, you don't go anywhere left or right, you just go up 5. -10, +10, -10 to the left, +10 up. And then 1, 7, right 1, and up 7. So that's what your coordinates should look like graphically. Okay, so your homework tonight is just going to be doing this exact same thing. So refer back to your notes as needed. And then tomorrow we're going to start reviewing for the final.